Be sure to watch until the end. These scary true stories are sure to cause fright at night, so don't watch them alone.
Billy was 12 and lived with his parents. Their house was in a bad neighborhood in Chicago, and there was a lot of bad crime in the area. One night, while he was lying in bed, unable to sleep, Billy thought he heard a scratching noise, but he couldn't figure out where it was coming from. He went into his parents' bedroom and woke them up. When they asked him what was wrong, he told them that he wasn't able to get to sleep because there were strange scratching noises coming from his room. His mother told him he was just being silly and told him to go back to his bedroom and go to sleep. Later that night, he was awakened again by the strange scratching sounds. He still couldn't figure out exactly where the sounds were coming from. Not wanting to wake up his parents again, he tried to ignore it and hid under the sheets. Suddenly, he felt a sharp piercing pain in his upper back. He cried out and jumped out of bed. Sprinting into his parents' bedroom again, he woke them up and told them that he had been bitten by a giant bedbug. His father got up and walked Billy back to his room. When they turned on the bedroom light, they saw that his bedroom window was wide open. The father inspected the bed and found a small hole in the sheets, and some of the mattress stuffing was coming through. They assumed that a spring in the mattress must have broken and poked out. The father flipped over the mattress and was horrified to find a knife sticking through the other side. There was mud and some leaves under the bed, exactly where someone's shoes would be. Opening the curtains and looking outside, they were shocked to discover fresh footprints in the mud leading away from the window. A few years ago, there was a man who went hunting out in the woods. As night fell, he found himself in an unfamiliar part of the forest. He got turned around at some point and couldn't figure out which way to go. He walked and walked, but he just couldn't find his way home. Wandering aimlessly in the dark, he eventually came to a small clearing where an old, beat-up cabin stood. Tired and weary, he decided to see if he could spend the night there. When he got closer to the cabin, he saw that the door was open just a little bit. Poking his head inside, he could see that the old cabin was totally empty, but there was a small bed and a fire burning in the fireplace. The hunter laid down on the bed and decided to sleep there for the night. If the owner came back, he would ask his permission in the morning. Lying on the bed, exhausted, he looked around and was surprised to see the walls were covered with unusual paintings. They looked to be family portraits, all framed and painted in incredible detail. They seemed very lifelike and, without exception, each portrait was uglier than the next. The hideous faces in the paintings made him incredibly nervous. The way they were painted made it look as if the eyes were staring right at him. It was incredibly unnerving. He decided that the only way he was going to get any sleep was to ignore the hideous faces staring at him. So he turned on his side, faced the wall, pulled the blanket over his head, and drifted off to sleep. In the morning, the hunter woke up to find the cabin bathed in sunlight. When he looked up, he discovered there were no family portraits on the walls of the cabin, only windows.
If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel for new weekly videos. You won't believe how spooky this next story is.
There was a girl who had a bedroom closet. On the inside of the closet door, there was a large full-length mirror. This girl was a thrill seeker and she loved to freak herself out. Sometimes, she would open the closet door at night and stare at her reflection in the mirror. One night, when she did this, she was surprised to see an interesting effect. Due to the interaction of light and shadow, when she looked in the mirror it seemed like her reflection had spooky black, empty eye sockets and a huge, gaping mouth. After admiring the optical illusion for a moment, the girl went to the bathroom. But when she turned on the bathroom light, She recalled something that made her lock herself inside the bathroom and start screaming loud enough to wake her parents and half the neighbors. What did she remember? Earlier that day, her father had removed the mirror from her closet door. I have a brother named Steve, who is 3 years older than me. We live with our parents in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. There's not a lot of space, so my brother and I have to share a room. We have bunk beds. I sleep on the bottom bunk and my brother sleeps on the top. One night, my parents went to visit our relatives who live in Syracuse. I stayed out late with my friends. When I got home, it was already past midnight. I didn't want to wake my brother, so I didn't turn on the light. I just undressed in the bathroom and went into our room. As I was getting into bed, I heard my brother groan and ask for a glass of water. I went to the kitchen, filled up a glass with water. When I returned to our bedroom, I sat down on the bottom bunk, took a couple of sips, then handed the glass to my brother. He took it from my hand. "Good night," I said, and I climbed into bed. I fell asleep almost instantly. Sometime later, I was awoken by the sound of knocking. With difficulty, I opened my eyes. It was still dark. I looked at the clock. It was only 7 a.m. Who could be coming to visit so early? I yawned, pulled myself out of bed, and went to open the door. There stood my brother. "Where were you?" I asked. "I stayed the night in my girlfriend's house," he replied. Suddenly, I realized what he said. "You didn't come home last night?" I asked. "No," my brother said. With a pounding heart, I walked back to the bedroom and turned on the light. The top bunk was empty, and beside the pillow, there was an empty glass. One night, not too long ago, I was walking home with Ronnie, a good friend of mine. We both lived in the same apartment building. It was a dark autumn night and the rain was pouring down. All of a sudden, there was a loud roar and we heard a car swerve on the road. We were caught in the glare of a bright light and a car rammed into us. We were tossed head over heels into the ditch along the side of the road. My friend and I were covered in mud. The driver never even bothered to stop. We helped each other out of the ditch, and by the light of our mobile phones, we started checking each other for injuries. We seemed to have escaped without a scratch. We cursed the driver for being so reckless and continued walking home. When we reached our apartment building, we stopped to smoke a cigarette outside. When we finished smoking, I told my friend I was going home to bed. He said, "You go ahead. I'm going to wait here for a while." I woke up in a hospital bed. My body was covered in bandages and casts. I was dizzy, disoriented, and felt terrible. Confused, I asked the nurse, "Where am I? What happened to me?" "You're in Memorial Hospital," the nurse said. "You just woke up from a 4-day coma. You were hit by a car, and you were lucky to survive. The police found you lying next to the road." "What about my friend? What about Ronnie?" I asked. "I'm sorry," she said. "Unfortunately, Ronnie didn't make it." When I got over the shock, I recalled the last words Ronnie said to me when we were saying goodbye at the entrance to our building. "You go ahead. I'm going to wait here for a while."